This is a special edition of the MeidasTouch podcast. I want to get an update from the Democrats regarding what's going on with the Epstein files. Indeed, there was a subpoena issued by the House Oversight Committee for the production of all of the records that the Department of Justice has on the Epstein files and everything Epstein related. The Democrats were able to outmaneuver the MAGA Republicans in the House Oversight Committee to get this subpoena issued before MAGA Mike Johnson, the MAGA Speaker of the House, was able to recess Congress because he wanted to try to stop any discussions on Epstein while Donald Trump then had his DOJ meet with Ghislaine Maxwell and grant her immunity and move her to a minimum security facility and give her waivers that sex traffickers aren't allowed to get to move to minimum security facilities. By the way, the people in Texas, Bryan, Texas, right by Texas A&M, they are outraged that they've got a sex trafficker moved into their community because that minimum security facility very integrated into the community. Like, you're bringing sex traffickers in here? What the hell are you doing? So today was the due date, though, for the subpoena where the DOJ by law had to turn over everything. I'm looking at my clock right now. They have not turned over everything. They have not turned over anything. Instead, they're now saying they're going to turn over some documents on Friday, maybe. I don't know what they're going to come up with on Friday. What documents are they going to turn over? Let me share this with you. This is first a statement by the House Oversight Committee chair, MAGA Republican James Comer. Here's what he said. He acted like, oh, we know the DOJ is going to be great here. He goes, officials with the Department of Justice have informed us that the department will begin to provide Epstein-related records to the Oversight Committee this week on Friday. There are many records in the DOJ's custody, and it will take the department time to produce all the records and ensure the identification of victims and any child sexual abuse material are redacted. I appreciate the Trump administration's commitment to transparency and efforts to provide the American people with information about the matter. Sure, Trump administration and transparency. Yep. Let's look at what the House Oversight Committee Democrats are saying, now led by ranking member, Democratic Congressman Robert Garcia, who's been very aggressive on this. Releasing the Epstein files in batches just continues the White House cover-up. The American people will not accept anything short of the full unredacted Epstein files. In a bipartisan vote, the committee demanded complete compliance with our subpoena. Hand-picked partial productions are wholly insufficient and potentially misleading, especially after Attorney General Bondi bragged about having the entirety of the Epstein files on her desk mere months ago. And to be clear, yesterday during his deposition with the committee, Attorney General Barr could not clear President Trump of wrongdoing. Chairman Comer should release the full unedited transcript of his interview with the public. We will keep pressing until the American people get the truth. Every document, every fact in full. The administration must comply with our subpoena by law. And y'all all recall that the Trump regime put about 1,000 FBI and DOJ lawyers apparently to look into the Epstein files, remove them from other investigations, and we learned largely to redact Donald Trump's name from them. That's what the reporting suggests, as Pam Bondi told Donald Trump back in May that his name was on the files that remain with the DOJ. All right, let's bring in the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, Democratic Congressman Robert Garcia. Congressmember, want to give everybody out here, first of all, it's great to have you here. We want to give everybody an update on what's going on right now. What's the latest? What are Democrats going to be doing to keep pushing forward to make sure there's real transparency and not a Trump cover-up?
Well, just like you said, I mean, the times are ticking over here and still no full Epstein files for the subpoena. Now, look, I think what's really important here is a couple of things. One, for the first time, the White House said, yes, we're actually going to send you documents officially. So they just told us that late last night. They said, okay, it's not going to be today. It's going to be Friday. Okay, that's possibly a step forward. But what they choose to actually send to us on Friday, what redactions may or may not be included, how they choose to release the files and in what order, all is going to be very important for the public to be engaged in, because we know that right now the White House is involved in a massive cover-up. They said they're going to release the files. Pam Bondi says that they're on her desk, ready to be released. They have a social media influencer event at the White House, as you know, to talk about releasing the files, and then nothing gets released. And so now we're about to get this first kind of full tranche of documents. It's going to happen this Friday, by the way, days after the subpoena date that the White House should be complying with. And we're going to be able to evaluate that Friday, this upcoming week, what's actually in there. Is the client list included? Have they protected the victims, which is really important, but not redacted anything else, which has been our request. And so we're going to get a really good idea of what the White House is trying to do at the end of this week, and we're not going to let this go. We've got some incredible researchers and lawyers and members of Congress engaged right now. What we do know is that Donald Trump is leading this massive cover-up, but we're not going to allow it. And the American public is finally catching on that Donald Trump is lying to them and betraying them.
They did, I guess, part of the cover-up move. They did this, the first deposition. Number one, oftentimes in these things, one of the strategy of who you pick first, who you pick second tells the story. So they go with the former Attorney General Bill Barr, who's already been involved in cover-ups for Donald Trump and has provided very misleading statements when he was the Attorney General, to put it lightly. So they bring in Bill Barr. I know that they're not supposed to, technically, while it's still under seal or in the committee, you're not supposed to talk about what's happening until there's a procedure for releasing it. But then James Comer comes out right away and he's like, Bill Barr just vindicated Donald Trump and said Trump had nothing to do with it. They then push it through their right-wing MAGA influencer network to try to control the narrative. And so I guess number one, my question for you is, why Bill Barr? Shouldn't Alex Acosta be the first person? I mean, the person who made the sweetheart deal, who didn't even get subpoenaed by the MAGA Republicans. That's number one. And number two, I just want to read the portion of your statement where you say, to be clear, yesterday during his deposition, Attorney General Barr could not clear. I think that this needs more attention. Attorney General Barr could not clear Donald Trump of wrongdoing. Chairman Comer should release the full unedited transcript of his interview for the public. So I know this puts you in a bind in the sense that you play by the rules. You can't go into the specifics of what's said, but can you provide any additional context other than that statement about what it means that he could not clear Donald Trump?
Well, look, let's put the facts where we know them. Donald Trump, we know, is in the Epstein files. We know that his name is there. We know that the Justice Department told him, and that Pam Bondi directly told the president that he appears in the files. And we know that Barr gave testimony, of which, of course, much of it is still sealed. And I've made the request to Comer and the Republicans, let's put all of these tapes and depositions out to the public. We have nothing to hide here. If someone's got something to say, why not let the public hear it, as long as we're protecting any names of any victims? And so what I would say that in no way was Bill Barr's testimony change the direction of this case. In no way did Bill Barr say anything that was groundbreaking in a way to halt our desire and need for justice for these victims and our certainty that Donald Trump and his name and other folks that may have been involved in different ways with Epstein are not in these files. We know that they are. And so Bill Barr's testimony was an act of Republicans trying to control a narrative, which they're going to do over and over and over again. Well, what the folks that we need to hear from is you're exactly right. Alex Acosta knows more about Jeffrey Epstein than probably any living human being on the planet. He put together Jeffrey Epstein's deal. He's intimately knows the ins and outs of the case, of what happened, of who did what, of every document, of the client list, of what the FBI was investigating, what the U.S. Attorney's Office was engaged with. And so this idea that we're not going to call the single most important living human being that knows more about this than anyone, I think is a real, I think, part of a broader scheme to cover up the facts. However, we know now that there's Republicans out there. Now, I've talked to a couple already, including one that's gone public, which is Representative Luna, who have said they're willing to hear from Alex Acosta. So what we've told James Comer is if you are not going to put forward a motion to subpoena Alex Acosta, then we're going to have to force another vote when we come back and get into Congress, because the public needs to hear from him. And lastly, I want to be clear. I've told this, Comer has heard this from us directly, and I'll just say it publicly. Let's make every single deposition around the Epstein files public. We Democrats have nothing to hide. Let's hear everything that's out there, and we should not be shielding any information from the American public.
Yeah, I mean, where's the testimony? Even though nobody really asked for Ghislaine Maxwell, who was accused of perjury and is a convicted sex trafficker. No one was like, you know who we really need to hear from right now and make her prison conditions better? Let's release Ghislaine Maxwell, release the files, not release the co-conspirator sex trafficker. But still, even though we know that Trump sent his former criminal defense attorney, who he's now made the number 2 at the DOJ, Todd Blanche, to conduct that, we know that the questions are going to be framed likely in leading ways that do not address the core issues about Trump. They still haven't even turned over that publicly, which, like, what are you doing? We just send randomly the number 2 at the DOJ, help out sex traffickers, and then don't release the things public. It's just wild to me.
Let me add one more thing to that. This is really important. I'm not at liberty to tell you what Bill Barr said about Todd Blanche and the way that he's been arranging these meetings with Ms. Maxwell. What I can say is I want the American public to hear what Bill Barr said in deposition about how he views the Department of Justice, the current Department of Justice's actions, and Todd Blanche's actions as it relates to this deal with Ms. Maxwell. The American public should know what was said, and we look forward to getting that information out.
And they don't want to release it. It'd be easy. Release it. I mean, there's nothing about that that's confidential or classified. I'm sure, as a former practicing lawyer who had cases against the government before, we all know that it was something that's entirely unprecedented, that the guy who basically runs the DOJ, the number 2 himself, would show up without the actual line prosecutors and attorneys who handled the case there. And that's unheard of. So we could guess what was said there, but it is important to for the American people to hear that being said. But all they hear is James Comer going out and saying, I got to tell you, Bill Barr saying that he blah, blah, blah. He said that Donald Trump is good. And then that gets reported. It's like, just release the freaking transcripts. This whole thing is cover up after cover up. I want to say this too. The files that are out there already from the civil cases, from what Donald Trump said, like, just think about the fact that we know that little girls, young girls, were sex trafficked from Mar-a-Lago. Like, just start with that premise. Trump says they were stolen, but an underage girl, at least one, possibly others, because Trump said that there were other girls who were stolen. He said, but we know Virginia Giuffre worked at a spa at Mar-a-Lago when Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein went over and said, oh, you're working at the spa? You want to do massages and walk around and travel the world with this guy? And that was Epstein's MO. He'd go to Mar-a-Lago, find the girls, and then sex traffic them. Now, whether Donald Trump knew that or didn't know that, then that becomes the question. But it's pretty screwed up that the place that you own is the site where that takes place. So, of course, there are questions. Then when 2 years after that, because that happened in 2000, you say Epstein is a great guy who likes women on the younger side, beautiful women on the younger side. Then you're on the plane with him 7 times, that you do parties at Mar-a-Lago with just you and Epstein, and then invite beauty pageant girls saying that they're going to meet modeling VIPs, and it's just you and Epstein that are there, and then you say you're the greatest Epstein in a 1997 book that he's like. I mean, these are like even what's out there already should shock the conscience. And
I would also tell the president this. I would say, Mr. President, you said that you weren't involved in any wrongdoing, or that you weren't involved in what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. Okay, then you have nothing to hide. Then release the files. Let's vindicate your name. Release the full unredacted files. And so either you're hiding something about yourself, or you're hiding something about others who have committed harm. And so the message to the president should be very clear. If you have nothing to hide, release the files. Because if you're trying to protect yourself or some of your wealthy billionaire friends, then that's a problem for the American public, and why it's so important that we do everything we can to get the truth out there.
One of the things I'm upset about, though, too, is that Ghislaine Maxwell's deposition was supposed to take place, like, what was it, the 9th or the 11th? Like, it was supposed to take place 2 weeks ago. You very aggressively, pushed for that deposition to take place, just like you did with these DOJ files. She was subpoenaed for her deposition. Then that's when, in response to that, then Trump goes, oh, get Todd Blanche in there right away. So then Blanche does that interview. Then she comes back with a series of demands after Blanche makes her queen for the day and gives her immunity to the House Oversight Committee led by Comer. Comer's like, all right, I'm not going to give you immunity. Maybe we won't give you she asked, I want the questions ahead of time. I don't know if we could do that, but we'll give you a delay until after the Supreme Court. Here's your petition for habeas, for your petition for certiorari. And then she also said, though, after the district court, here's my habeas petition, which I feel is the poison pill in her demand, because the petition ends sometime September or October. It still delays it for another 45 days. But then if she says, I want my habeas petition, does that mean the habeas, then her appeal to the Supreme Court on her habeas? So are they just trying to kick her deposition now sometime to 2026, 2027? Because, look, whether she invokes her Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination, that will be very telling, right? After speaking with Todd Blanche, like, that will make a statement in and of itself. There are a lot of questions that she can be asked that really would be struggling to cover up, just factual questions. But what do you make of that piece of this?
We got to hear from her. Look, this is, first of all, we want to hear from her, but we also know that she is a horrific person. She's not a good person. She was involved in sex trafficking. She has lied, of course, to the courts. But anything she says and her actions, we need to be able to corroborate within the actual files. And so this idea that we are not, we're going to pick and choose who we want to hear from and when we're going to hear from them, this is all games that Donald Trump's DOJ, that Bondi is playing, that Donald Trump is playing. But this cannot last and go on forever. The clock is ticking. The snowball is getting larger and larger and larger. And we're now at the point where the public is demanding what we are, which is just the truth. And so he cannot get away from the bottom line and this truth. And I expect that after this Friday, we'll have taken one other step forward in trying to get to the bottom of what actually happened.
All right. So going forward, looking ahead, talk to us about, you're now the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee. I've been hearing from so many people saying, wow, we've got someone aggressive in there finally, who's really kind of pushing back. What can we expect to happen now in the coming weeks? If they think that they are going to not talk about the Epstein files as MAGA Mike wants to do. What are you going to do there? And how do we ensure that these files get out there when we know that the DOJ is going to throw everything to try to block this?
Look, I think over the next few weeks, we are going to watch this like hawks and be engaged. At the end of the day, we're going to get the files Friday. We have a whole team ready to go to look through what we get. We're going to continue to push and get the rest of those files as we get them, go through them. What we can release, we're going to release. And then, of course, when we get back into Congress, watch our committee, because we're going to take some actions in our subcommittees, in our committees. We're going to force votes. We're going to push hard. We're going to try to get Alex Acosta with the subpoena. We're going to bring on other folks. We're reaching out to victims and their families. We have a whistleblower website and line in Oversight that we've launched, where people can comment and get us information they might know of across the country. So we're going everywhere. We're going to be everywhere. We're going to communicate everywhere. And if Donald Trump thinks that he's just going to let this thing go away because he wants to create some distraction, he has no idea what's coming, because we're going to keep on this till we get the truth for the victims.
I just think already, look, what is likely in there based on the level of cover-up, one can make certain assumptions about. But his conduct in plain view that has already happened, rewarding his friend, one of his best friends, this convicted child sex trafficker, with this upgrade to this facility in Camp Bryan, right by the Texas A&M community, you're giving her all of these benefits. It is a conscious, shocking gesture that the sex trafficker gets this. Like, if you told me, Congressman, look, in the files, Donald Trump says he's going to help convicted child sex traffickers. There's an email in there, and he's like, here's my plan. Ghislaine, if I ever get into a position of power, I've got you back when you're convicted of sex trafficking of children who you found at Mar-a-Lago. I've got you back. And I go, that's pretty bad. He just did it. He just did it in our own view. We saw it. I'm not even sure if that's a question or a final observation, but I'll give you the last word before we go to all of our viewers who I think are glad to see the Democrats finally fighting back, are glad to see young Democrats like you running these committees and pushing forward, but are just worried about everything right now, that he's just going to get away with it.
Yeah, here's the final word right now of the moment. Donald Trump's approval rating as of today is a 60% disapproval of the American public. He is tanking. His support across the country is tanking. And it's going down because he's being exposed for the corruption. He's being exposed for the lies. He's being exposed for turning his back on the American public as it relates to the Epstein files, for ripping away healthcare. And so my message is just, let's stay on this issue. Let's keep pushing. Let's not give up. We can flip the elections in 2026. We can ensure that we stop this Donald Trump agenda, and let's also get justice for all these victims. And so keep fighting the good fight.
There you have it. The ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, Democratic Congressman member Robert Garcia. This is our special edition MeidasTouch podcast. I know our viewers want to make sure we stay laser focused on the Epstein files. Of course, we are going to stay laser focused, just like you, Congressmember Garcia. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much.
All right, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that special edition. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million subscribers. Also, check out our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. Have a good one.
Can't get enough Meidas? Check out the Meidas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts, daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, and more. Sign up for free now at MeidasPlus.com.